Today we're taking a look at 7 myths about learning guitar that might seriously hold you back, or even make you quit. Hello and welcome to another video with me, Elmo Karjalainen. It's good to have you along. You can call me this guy if my name is tricky to pronounce. Today we're going to go through 7 myths that could be holding you back, or they could make you quit, or they could make it so that your kid never starts. This is all to help you progress faster, set you up not for failure, but for success. So first one, you have to learn chords first. No, you don't. You don't have to do anything. We're all different. As a general rule, it makes sense. Chords are way easier than this stuff. But if you have no interest in learning chords, you won't be motivated. It'll feel like work, and you'll get nowhere very fast. If you want to learn how to tap or shred or whatever, you can absolutely do that. But there are other alternatives as well. You can just learn riffs. The one I always give first to my students in middle school where I teach music is this one. There's not a chord in sight. And it helps them work their fingers. I think I played downstrokes all the way, but you can work on down, up, and so on. There are so many things you can do. You don't have to limit yourself to chords. Number 2, start with light strings. Again, I see where this is coming from, but it's just not true. Start on any old strings. Well, not old. New strings are better. There are differences. Again, we're all different. What if you're huge? You've the power of Hulk and Superman combined or something like that. What do you care what strings you're using? Gary Moore once said that he learned to play using the heaviest strings around, so that meant he could bend twice as far as all of his friends, and they were like, what are you doing? And he said it was good for him. Again, we're all different. Number 3, start with an acoustic. This almost happened to me. I wanted to play guitar, and my grandparents thought that was a great idea. They offered to buy me an acoustic guitar. Well, they offered my parents to buy me an acoustic guitar. Or they said to my parents that they can buy me an acoustic guitar. Great, Elmo will play acoustic. Elmo would not have play acoustic very long. Elmo would not have started to play acoustic at all. I don't know what that accent is. I would have just not started. Because what I was into was Gary Moore, Yngwie Malmsteen. I'd been into Ronnie James Dio, even Kiss. There was no way I was going to play acoustic guitar. Start with an instrument that's the right instrument for the kind of music that you want to play. If you want to play Meshuggah, it should probably be an 8-string guitar. If you want to play blues, on a Les Paul, buy a Les Paul. It doesn't have to be a real Les Paul, it can be a Les Paul copy. There are really cheap ones, good ones out there. You don't have to start on acoustic. Number 4, start on a cheap guitar. First of all, if you have tons of money, why would you limit yourself if money isn't an issue? Now, again, I see where this is coming from. It's less of a loss if you buy a cheap guitar, end up not liking to play guitar, it's less of a loss. But if you buy a cheap guitars are way better than they used to. But chances are it'll be worse than a mid-price guitar. Depends on brands and all kinds of stuff. But if you get a bad guitar, then the chances are you'll just end up quitting sooner. Because it won't be fun to play. It'll be uncomfortable. It might sound bad. It might not stay in tune. You're just setting yourself up for failure. Or if you're buying your kid a guitar, you're just setting your kid up for failure. You want to give the person who's starting to play the best chance possible to keep going. Because the beginning, let's face it, it's tricky. Number 5, you need to learn to read music. Again, you don't have to do anything. And it's very similar to the one about chords. I like to compare this to language, because music in a way is language. We communicate feelings with words as well, or at least we try to. But we learn to speak before we learn to read. And I think the same applies to music. You're absolutely free to learn to play and read at the same time. I'm not knocking that, but for me, it was always, I need to learn music before I learn how to read music. And I'm still not good at reading music. That's a weakness I should work on. But you don't have to learn to read music. If you're a classical player, probably. But if you play this stuff, you don't have to learn how to sight read. Number 6. Don't copy others. Develop your own style. Strictly speaking, not a myth. But I remember reading this and being confused way back in the day. What am I supposed to do then? How do I develop my own style? Well, you develop your own style by copying others, at least at first. And it doesn't have to be that you copy only guitar players. You can copy others as well. It's always a good idea to study a broad variety, at least to a certain extent. But concentrate, when you're learning, concentrate on clear goals like this. You set a big goal. I want to be like Gary Moore, Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Vai. They do roughly the same thing. So it's not I want to be like Charlie Parker, Yngwie Malmsteen and LeBron James, because they do really different things. I want to be like Steve Ray Vaughan, Yngwie Malmsteen and Pat Metheny. Yes, they all play guitar, but they do it really differently and you'll have trouble breaking that down into smaller goals. It's much easier if your big goal, Yngwie Malmsteen, Gary Moore, Steve Vai, for instance, those three are closely related. They all sound very different, but they do the basic stuff fairly similarly. And that's much easier to break down into smaller goals. Then you can branch out later when you get a bit more experience and you're a bit more proficient. Then you start branching out. And that's when you start to develop your own sound, not when you're learning the basics. So definitely copy others. Besides, if you copy others in a kind of wide variety, let's say Charlie Parker, Yngwie Malmsteen and Victor Wooten, you might come up with some really interesting stuff. I've heard that all new ideas are just combinations of 2 or more old ideas. And number 7, and I think this one might actually be the biggest one in many ways. You need talent. No, you don't. Now, I don't actually know if anyone goes around saying that you need talent, but I do know from experience with students that the thought process is something like this. Let me give you an example. This really happened. I had 2 students. One was playing piano, the other was playing guitar. The girl playing piano looked at the girl playing guitar, and the girl playing guitar played something quite nice. And the piano player said, I could never do that. And that's such a load of rubbish. It's all rubbish. Talent has nothing to do with it. Talent will get you started, maybe easier than someone who doesn't have talent. I would speak more of inclination towards something. Talent it's just 5%. If you hear someone who plays even half decently, there are tons of hours of work that have gone into the whole thing. More important than talent is that you believe in yourself, you practice the right way, and then you practice the right things. Another example I have is of a piano player, a student of mine, who also actually started dabbling in guitar at one point, and she picked up a guitar and she learned a few chords very quickly. And another of my students was like, how did she do that? Well, I explained, she's played piano for ages, so her fingers are actually used to moving kind of independently and doing stuff. That's probably helped her. Talent is not that important. It comes down to hard work, the work being fun, so that it doesn't feel like work, working the correct way, working with the right things. A teacher could help you there. A good teacher, mind you. Which is another myth. You need a teacher. No, you don't need a teacher. A good teacher will help you. A bad teacher will just be a hindrance. If you want to check out more of my lessons, there's a playlist here. Please check out my Patreon. There's a link in the description. You get access to my music, my lessons, and a bunch of exclusives. You can even take that stuff for free. But above all, I hope you have a nice day. Take care. See you. Bye.